Welcome back to Adventure Pete. It's glad to see you here. So, we're in our camper today because to talk about our baby gate that we have for our bunk beds. So, there are a lot of different designs out there on the market, different things like that. We didn't find anything that we liked, and most of them were just gaudy in the way, and they didn't actually keep the kids safe. So, what we did is we built our own, and that's what we're going to show you how to do right here. So, if this is your first time here, make sure you like the video, comment, tell us what you think, tell us what you want to hear about, and subscribe. We got a lot of great content coming, a lot of great content on the channel, so be sure to check it out. So, what do we do and why do we do it? So this gate is built to actual safety standards for any deck railing or things like that that you'd find in the United States. And that's how we spec'd it. So first it has a hitch block on the left side here that attaches to the wall. We use spring clamps to actually allow it to release, one-handed operation, and it slides off out of the way. On the back wall here, it utilizes a C-channel track that pins ride in to allow it to go in and out, but also keep it retained to the wall so it does not come out. You don't have to worry about kids falling out. Why did we choose this design? This is a simple 1x4 construction. I just had leftover boards laying around the garage, so you can do this with any material that you want or any style. You can build it with 2x4s or 1x6s, whatever. I chose to use 1x4s because it fit what I needed to. I chose a lateral board across the center because a few different things. Most gates and things like that, you always see the vertical bars because most people like the vertical aspect for aesthetics, and they usually use round bars and things like that. When you have a short round bar, it's a lot stronger than a longer round bar because you can push through that very easily and bend it, which is not safe because kids get their head stuck in it. So I did a lateral bar because it's 1x4, so it's a lot sturdier, and it have less blocked out space. So having the long passages like this allows me to be able to see into the bed, to be able to keep an eye on the kids, talk to them, or just be able to check on them as I'm walking through the camper when they're sleeping. So with that being said, these gaps are each 4 inches, which is the building code standard for any kind of deck railing and things like that. So this is safe. Kids' heads are not going to get stuck in it. This is a national standard across the board. With these gaps both being 4 inches, that allows this gap to be less than 4 inches, and this gap to also be less than 4 inches as well. So all the way across the board, it is safe for the children. So this is why I built it to this style, this standard, and this design. It's pretty straightforward, and we'll show you how we built it now. For the first initial design, we're going to show you this is the hitch block that it's held in there. We use these 2 spring clamps pinched together, allows it to come out and out of the way. The hitch block is a very simple design that you can see right here. We just have a simple base that allows most of it to rest its weight on. And we have a notch right here because right on that notch is the hole that the spring clamp hooks into. And then you follow the gap all the way up because this is where my fingers go. And then you have the hole at the very top for the other spring clamp. And this is just the main brace that holds all the weight. So it's a very simple design, but it works. It is easy to do. On the other side, you can see the C-track. Right there, we have it offset, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but that is the pins right there. So that is the initial design that we're looking at and how we're building it. So for the door itself, this dimensions can vary depending on the size of the bunk for your model that you have. So we have a Jayco RV. I know most bunks and most RVs are going to be about the same. They really didn't change that much unless you have a straight wall. We have the curved wall bunks. That's why ours is a little bit longer. Either way, this is what we did. If you make it bigger like we did, it's going to fit just about anything you put it in anyways. So here we're going to show you what we got. So to cover all the dimensions of this, if you built this exact same styling, which is the strongest way to build it anyways, especially for your pin locations, I recommend just following this blueprint. So to start with, your main top and bottom boards are 32 inches overall length. So top and bottom, 32 inches. Your middle board that goes across, that connects the two, right here is 25 inches. Your risers on each side, you can see, are 11.5 inches. So once you cut all these boards out and assemble them, you can put them together in a couple different ways. I chose to use a biscuit joiner, which is just basically it cuts a little groove like a half moon shape in the wood, and you put a biscuit in there when you glue it together that gives a nice strong joint all together. You can do screws, you can do a Craig jig, you can pin it, you can dowel it the same, which doweling is simply just drilling a hole, then putting a peg in there with glue to make a nice strong joint as well, depending on what supplies you have and what tools you have at your disposal. I have a biscuit joiner, so it works out nice. If you just butt glue everything together, that works as well. Clamping everything together does make it easier to make a nice clean joint. This is done all with 1x4 wood. You can use any other different size that you want, but this is what works for us. So once you get the whole board assembled, you need to get your pins on everything. So these pins are simple 1/4x20 bolts that I got that were just long enough that have a shaft length of 3/4 of an inch. You can make this shorter or longer, but the longer you have of that shoulder, the better you have. The rest of it is just threaded in to the wood itself. So I took a 1/4 bolt, cut the head off, and put it on the grinder to just grind off the head to make a nice round tip. Then took vice grips and just spun it into the wood so it's nice and tight. It's not coming out. I did that on all 4 corners. So with that, this pin location is 6 inches away from the end. The other side is 3/8 of an inch away from the end. So I did that one close, so that way when this turns at the angles, this edge doesn't rub up against the outside wall. So that's why I have that there. If you go too far to the edge, you risk splitting the wood. So that's why it's at this location. Once you get all 4 pins in, you can set the barrel locks wherever you would like. Some people like to set this in first and then make the hitch block to fit this. Some will make the hitch block first and make these fit. But if you want to follow the exact design that I have, you can follow right here. 4 3/16 off the bottom is to the edge of that plate right there, as you can see. And that is the same off the top. 4 3/16 off the top. So that is to the edge of that plate. From there to there, from there to there. Now for location wise, left and right, if you take the tape measure, you can see it's a 1/2 inch on center of the barrel pin itself on that one, and the same for that one, 1/2 inch on center. That is how I built the main gate. So that is how to build the main door frame itself. So this can vary depending on the model that you have, but this is a longer door, so it should work with any model that you have. The next thing we're going to work on is the C channels that this door rides in while it's closed, and where you stow it back to while it's open, so it's tucked up against the wall nice and tight. Those C channels are nice and easy to do, but sometimes if you have it, you either got to be very good with a skill saw or have a table saw at hand to make the groove. Many different options are possible, but we're going to show you what we got. So these are the C channel tracks that we have that this door rides in. They are just simply screwed in the wall on both sides, up top and bottom, so it's simple and easy. I did put a pin on the very back side of the track to make sure it doesn't get pushed in too far and the gate falls out the back side, and then you have to pull it back out and reset it. But that's just a convenience thing, so it's not too much with it. As you can see, this groove is offset to one side, because if I cut it directly down the center, that door being, because this is 1x4, that door would be sitting up against the wall and kind of rattling and rubbing against the wall as it comes out. So with a table saw, I ripped it just off center. So we are at 5/16 off the one side. That allows it just 1/8 on the other side. So this board, being a 1x4, is a little bit trickier to do for most. So you can make this out of a 2x4, so that gives you more meat where it's easier to do with a skill saw, and you can offset it further out as well, because that dimension doesn't matter as much as long as you have a piece of wood to retain it so it doesn't pop off inside, and you have a spacer to make sure it's not resting up against the wall. That is what matters. The overall length of these is also 32 inches, just to simply match the door itself, and the pins are offset inwards so you don't have to worry about it having any problems. So that is how to build these. They're pretty simple, just take a little bit of time, and they screw into the wall just like this. So now a hitch block. It is looking like a weird kind of design right here, but it's pretty easy to do. So if you can see, I have a little bit of felt tape right down at the bottom because that's where the door actually sits and rests on so it doesn't rattle. So that's what carries a load when the pins are engaged. So this right here is simply 3.5 inches wide. So that's your standard 1x4 width. And then for the overall height, it is 17.5 inches. So if you take a 1x4, cut it to 17.5 inches, that gets us our initial start. With that, I cut it in right here to 2.25 inches. So once we get it down to 2.25, that gives us our groove where this is also 2.25 as well, because that's where it's going to rest up against with our height. So that's where both ends are going to rest on that door, top and bottom. With this right here, it is 1.25 inches. That allows us space for our fingers to reach in there and grab the spring clamps. So that's what that is. So once you do that, we have this simply just screwed right there in both places. Also, to go with that, we have the holes drilled right there. So now what I did is when I cut this, I actually cut it at an angle. So you have this initial dimension right there, and I back cut it to be as flat as I could. So when the door comes in, it actually sits at that angle to get this as close as I can to this pinhole. So that's what I recommend. So your outer dimension was 2.25, and then your angle determines the back dimensions. So that is the pinhole to make sure I get as much meat as possible when I have that barrel pin hooked in there. You can get a barrel pin that sits further away from the door. You don't have to worry about that dimension as much, but that is what I did. So that angle does change. We were looking at about 1 inch at the backside, and then from the edge at 3/4 inch, so we got a 1/4 inch of angle going backwards on this. So hopefully that helps and makes it a little easier. I just cut it with my circular saw. Same dimension angle on the end. Just to attach it to the wall, just simple screws right here along the end. That's all that is. These screws on the end is because the board I had holes in it, so I just want to fill them with some nice decorative screws. So those are actually there for no reason, but just have it screwed in to the wall right there. So that is the dimensions for the hitch block itself that the door hooks up into. So you can see with the actual door into the hitch block, because it doesn't come in at a perfect angle because ours is rounded. So it comes in at an angle, and that's why I had that groove cut on both sides, so it's cut at an angle. So you can see the lower piece right there where it actually rests on with just that felt tape, just so it sound deadening. You have the initial block where this actually pushes up against. That is the main support block. So when a kid pushes up against it, it's pushing up against that. That is your stop, along with the same stop at the top side. That's what that dimension's for. The main notch cutback is simply just for finger access to these hitch pins. Different size hitch pins can accommodate a different gap. So if you get a bigger pin, you need a bigger gap and things like that. But this one works for me. This dimension is just for strength mostly. So I have enough room to fit my fingers in there, but it's also rigid enough so I don't have to worry about it bending or breaking when there's pressure exerted on it. So on this side with the C-track, you can see the gate actually pushes back inwards past the wall surface. That way when they're pushing out against the gate, it's always pushing up against a wall surface. So if a pin failed or the C-track failed, it's not going to push past the wall, so it's always safe for them. And the C-track edges on the top and the bottom means they can't push it inwards and pull it in as well. So it works out nice, and that's why we did it this way. And you can see with the gap that it's not up against the wall, and that's why we offset the pins on this back side. So it is safe for the kids. You don't have to worry about them falling out with it. So to show it all in action, now that we've all showed the dimensions, how to put it together, you simply, one hand pinches it together, and you can slide it back, and it goes and sits right in that groove, goes all the way back. It doesn't push back, so it's actually nice and easy. So there's still plenty of access here. This stays out of the way, that stays up against the wall so it doesn't rattle, and it's safe and just as it is. And easy to stow. You just bring it back all the way across. It is somewhat two-handed to put it back up, but I don't mind doing it. Make sure the pins are locked and it is safe. It's not going anywhere. So it's a very simple design and very easy to do, and I really like it because it works. It fit function. I don't have to worry about taking it down, putting it somewhere, is it being in the way, or relying on it just being underneath the mattress, because I don't think that's safe. I think that's just not trustworthy. It's better than having a fabric mesh that you're not sure if it stretches out, because we've had a fabric mesh on the lower one where kids can still get out, and that's not what we want, especially being up higher at night because we do not want to have an emergency room trip if we don't have to. So that is what I did. You can do this with any materials that you want. You can make it as nice or as fancy as you want. You can paint them. I did not because it actually looks really nice with a wood finish. I just took sandpaper and just rounded the edges so it wasn't rough and sharp. So it works nice for us. It fits our color scheme very well, and I enjoy it. So that is the simple version of how to do it. Hopefully you can like the video. Comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to hear about, and subscribe. We got a lot of great content coming, a lot of great content on the channel, so be sure to check it out. And remember to have a great adventure.